Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Managing Partner Forum webinar for the month of July. Uri Gutfreund, my co-host, is here. Good to see you as always.
Good to see you too, John.
Number 60 in the series. Can you
Ooh,
believe it?
I can. I used to have hair when we started.
So did I. And we're very fortunate and honored to have with us a great set of guest speakers, the leadership at the NALP Foundation. You'll meet them formally a little bit, but we've got Fiona, Jennifer, and Skip. Fiona, how are you doing today, and where sit you this afternoon?
I sit in steamy Boston where we are dealing with 90s, which is a little hot for all of us.
Yeah, Boston ain't used to the 90s so much. Now Skip over here, we were talking about the weather in Atlanta during our rehearsal, and I'm complaining that it was 106 on my patio. He's in Palm Springs, California. So, Skip, what's the temperature out there today?
Well, today it's a cool 102. So, I mean,
Ooh,
that's
get
like
out the
nothing.
sweaters. Get
But
out
it's
the
low
sweaters.
humidity. But it's low humidity, so it
Not
doesn't
the
feel
heat,
that
it's the
way.
humidity. And Jennifer, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great.
And where are you?
I am in Minneapolis and it's raining and about 70 degrees today.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. I'm in
Well,
Atlanta where it's hot and sunny. We had the All-Star game last night here in town that everybody's feeling pretty good about. And for once, it was a fairly exciting game. I watched little bits and pieces of it. Uri, where are you today
I'm in
before we get
beautiful
started?
northern New Jersey.
Yeah, a lot of rain, both
Oof.
Boston and New York, New Jersey this week. Yeah.
We sure did have a lot of rain. A little scary. I'm sure you've seen the picture of
no.
lightning strikes in New York. It was quite incredible.
Yeah.
There's
Scary.
pictures of the subway system, flooding
Oh,
out
yeah.
was,
It's
mm, crazy times for sure.
yep.
Well, we are at the top of the hour, so I'm going to officially get started. Strike the clock. Places, everybody. Welcome to the MPF webinar series, our 60th iteration. And this month, we'll be talking about associate hiring and attrition, which has emerged as the number one issue for smaller and mid-sized law firms. Attracting talent, holding talent. We're seeing it again and again in our surveys and in our Zoom sessions with managing partners. So we're going to try to get into this and figure out what's going on and what we can do about it. Uri, how are you?
I am doing well, John. Thank you. Yeah, I can't believe this is number 60.
I
Seems
know.
like just yesterday.
Just yesterday. It really does. COVID hit, we had nowhere to go, nothing to do. So we said, let's do a webinar. And here we are. So good to be with you, everybody. I'm John. That's Uri. We're you're our co-moderators for the program, and our speakers. If you joined us a few minutes early, you met them. But formal introductions. We have Fiona. I'm going to kill your last name, Fiona. I always do.
It's okay,
So I'm going to
Trevelyan.
give it to you.
Just
How do
like
we pronounce?
Italian with the T in front of it.
I'm just going to call you Fiona.
That works just fine. There's just one of me on the call today, I
I
think.
think you're one of the very few Fionas I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. So it's great to be with you again. And we
Yep.
have Jennifer Mandery. She's the Vice President of Research at the NALP Foundation. How are you, Jennifer?
I'm doing excellent today.
Excellent. I like those glasses.
Thank you.
Looking sharp. And we have Skip Horne. Skip is the Vice President for Engagement at the NALP Foundation, and we are fellow alumni from the University of Virginia. So that's kind of cool. Skip, how are you?
We are. What do you have good memories of your time in Charlottesville, John?
What memories I have are good. I'm watching this profile of Thomas Jefferson on PBS.
Yeah.
It's been rolling a lot. Really interesting, and relatable, having spent time in Charlottesville. So yeah, I enjoyed my time in Charlottesville. So welcome to our panel. We're so delighted you're with us, and those of you who've been following us for a while, this group was with us last year to talk about similar topics, research developed by the NALP Foundation, featuring their stay study and why
Mhm.
associates hang around and stay at their law firms. Today, we're going to take a slightly different angle and talk about hiring and attrition. Before we jump in, and I'll invite whoever's going to take the lead to tell us about the NALP Foundation, what you all do.
Thanks so much, John. I will leap into the fray here. So great to be with you all. We are thrilled to be sharing some of the data that the NALP Foundation has collected. For those of you who are not familiar with the foundation, we are a nonprofit 501c3 or a research organization specifically targeting the legal profession. We look at issues around recruiting, retention, the pipeline, career trajectories, and access to legal education. So as John mentioned, I have my wonderful colleagues Skip and Jennifer here as well. The foundation does a number of annual recurring studies. We'll be sharing with you the data from one of those major studies, our annual law firm associate hiring and attrition study. As John mentioned, we also do episodic studies. So we did one last year on associate retention. And so we're looking forward to sharing with you what has been happening in a law firm associate hiring and departures, some of the drivers for those departures, and sort of what's going on in the market overall, so that you are armed with data that will enable you to make actionable decisions and inform your strategic planning as you move forward on important talent management issues.
Thank you, Fiona. And people love the data we presented last time out that you all bring to it. And we hear it again and again. Folks love the banter among our panel. We try to keep it lively and entertaining and bring you lots of timely, relevant data that will help you run a more profitable, successful, sustainable law firm. Skip, anything, Jennifer, anything to add to NALP Foundation before I jump forward?
We've been
Just
in
excited.
existence for over 25 years. And one thing with this particular study, as Jennifer, who's our longtime researcher, knows, we have some really good trend data. We've been doing this particular attrition study for coming up on almost 20 years. So we can go back to the mid 2000s. And so we have some really good trend information that we'll share a little bit of that with you. Jennifer, what were you going to add?
Oh, I was just going to say, last time we were with you, we talked about the reasons associates were staying at their firms. And this time we're looking at the other side of the coin. So we're going to take a look at why they are leaving and where they're going to next.
And hopefully how we can get them to stay, as we tune into what they're looking
Mhm.
for in their careers and such. So we'll keep going. Before we do, some shameless announcements. We have our programs upcoming, our webinar series. We'll be presenting a program in August on trends in law firm compensation models. And it'll just be Uri and I polling questions, and we're going to ask you a lot of questions about what you're doing to tweak and evolve your compensation systems. People love that. Our women's conference we'll be having in Chicago. That's our next big in-person event. We've been doing a program dedicated to women in law firm leadership since COVID allowed us to come back to the conference scene. So we'll be doing that, and details, registration will be opening up soon. So that's what we got coming up. And today's program, Uri, set us up.
Yeah, sure. So as mentioned, today's program, we're going to be talking about associates. Can we hire them? Why are they coming here? Why are they staying here? And of course, the flip side is hopefully we'll have some good insights so that we can keep them and not lose them. So Jennifer, good connection, right? It is connected. We don't lose them, we actually keep them. This is going to be really good data. So today we have 95 of you registered. Managing partners, law firm leaders. It should be exciting. We're going to share with you some of the data that you shared with us when you registered, as well as we'll have real-time polling questions as we go through today's program. Again, bringing home that data. This will be then sent to you. It is being recorded and the handout material. So you can get that if something resonates with you and you want to share it with your partners. It'll be real easy. John's organization is going to send it to you, and you can package it on, probably circle, highlight the things you like. Feel free to self-edit it. Send them the parts you love so that you can share with your partners. The one thing we ask, as you know, there's no cost. John and I have been doing 60 of these. They keep getting better, John. I'm going with that. They keep getting better, and the reason they are is because of
We'd
your
like to
help.
think so, Uri. We'd
We
like
do
to
like
think
to
so.
think so. We get your feedback, and that's really important. So give us your feedback. When you do log out today, at the end of the program, it's going to pop up. Just give us short 3-question survey. What'd you like? What'd you not like? What do you want to see next time? So that'll help us keep making these programs better. If you have any questions during our program, just pop it into the question question box, and we will try and work it into the conversation. So
Right. Uri,
let's
you
go
really
on.
enunciate. You're a big enunciator.
Am I? Oh, well, I've been
Yes.
doing it for too long, I guess. Well, we're going to bring on the data. So our first polling question of today, and this is for Fiona and the team, how many lawyers are with your firm? This changes a little bit from webinar to webinar, but I think we'll see a lot of similarity right in mid-law. Let's see, John.
This is hits our sweet spot. We try to gear our programming to the mid-law set, 25 to say 150 lawyers, and sure enough, that's pretty well reflected in our firm sizes here today. And much of the data that Skip and Jennifer Fiona will be sharing is big law data, but it's very, very relevant to firms of all sizes. This isn't just big law stuff. So here are the results on the firm sizes for all to see.
John, I
And
don't see it. I don't know if the other panelists see the data. Do you want to just read that off?
that didn't come through. Hang on.
I was able to see it.
Closed.
Yeah.
Okay, so just
Boom.
read it off. I don't know if my
Share
screen's unique.
again.
Yep.
Did that come up now?
Not on my screen, but it could be a my issue.
So what we have is about 8%, fewer than 10. 10 to 25 lawyers, 31% of our audience, 18%, 26 to 50, 33%, 51 to 100, and 10% more than 100. That's supposed to be coming up on the screen. You know me and technology and the voting and stuff. Bear with me. Sometimes technology has its glitches. But Midlaw is who's here with us today, and we hope to provide some good, relevant data. To cue us up, and then we'll turn things over to Fiona and her team, but just to kind of set the stage a little bit, we do our big premiere event every year in Atlanta in May, and it's called the Leadership Conference. Here's some data we collected there about what's on their minds. We had 105 managing partners this year. Frustratingly, the Canadians didn't show up like they usually do. They didn't like this 51st state talk or or this tariff talk. So literally, they called and said, "John, I'm not coming this year." But we went forth and have a nice following and more alumni coming. We ask every year. We give them a list. What are your top priorities, your firm's top priorities this year? And look at what number 1 and number 2 are. Pretty square on with what we're going to talk about today. Recruiting talent, holding talent, and making them work hard. Of course, we're going to boost their productivity. We know they like work-life balance, but those are the priorities this year's crop of managing partners shared. And we always, what's your appetite for merger acquisition? And nobody wants to be acquired. It looks like one firm, 2 firms here said they might be willing to entertain being acquired, but most firms want to be in charge. They're looking for laterals. They're looking, but they want to remain the dominant firm, most of the crowd here. So let's turn things over to Fiona and her group. Then here's our little young associate coming to join the firm. And we've managed to talk him into coming over and talk to us about your study.
Terrific. Thank you all so much. So as I mentioned at the outset, the NALP Foundation has a couple of annual recurring research studies that we do, and this is one of our signature ones. We have been doing this since 2007, so a really rich, robust set of data. It's the law firm associate attrition study. Everyone lovingly calls it attrition, but it's actually about associate attrition and hiring. We look at both sides of that coin, as Jennifer mentioned. So we are able, because we've been doing this so long, not only to share with you the results from the most recent year, which is looking at calendar year 2024, but also, as Skip mentioned, doing some of that longitudinal trend tracking as well. So this past year, we had just under 100.
I like that longitudinal trend tracking. I like that.
Yeah, it's data geek speak, right? You will hear that from us, I'm afraid. We are the data geeks. So we had just under 120 firms all across the country share with us all of their associate hiring and attrition data. So really good, robust data set on just over 6,000 associate hires and just under 4,000 associate departures. We do have consistent questions that we ask year over year to make sure that we can do that important trend tracking, but we also want to be sensitive to the environment that we and the firms are operating in. So every year we think about, are there new areas that we need to probe in order to provide insights that will be helpful to folks? So for example, this year we added new queries on career-related shifts into education and government, and things about desire for remote and flexible work arrangements. And we're going to get into that in particular, I know, a little bit later. Some of the ongoing queries, we've been hearing a lot over the last couple of years about law firms rehiring associates. So we specifically queried that. We've looked at virtual hires, those who are brought into their environments during this virtual world that we are all inhabiting. We also look at things like departure date tracking so that we can see if there are alignments between movements in the talent population with what's going on either in the larger economy or within the law firm world in particular. So things like salary bumps, bonuses, retrenchments, et cetera, so we can see how those correlate together. So this most recent report was just released this past April, and I should mention that all of the reports that the foundation does are available on our website. So if you're really interested in digging further into any of the data that we share today, do feel free to hop on there, and you can get it in lots more detail there as well.
Yeah, we'll send links to these resources as well as part of our follow-up for everybody. Fiona, what was the average firm size? Would you guesstimate, or?
So we have, one of the wonderful things about the study is that we have a broad spectrum of firms participate. So we have small firms, medium-sized firms, large firms, some of the largest firms. We have great national spread. We do have some Canadian participation as well. So we are very careful to make sure that it is a balanced portfolio of participants so that when we reflect the data back, and as you'll see in some of the data that we'll be sharing, we do slice it, for example, by firm size, because there can be some important differences based on that. We also look at it regionally and by a whole other set of data slices as well.
Okay.
So
we got a set of slides here. Just kind of walk us through what we're seeing,
Yep.
and Uri and I will pepper you with smart questions.
Feel free to pepper, and Jennifer and Jennifer and Skip, I don't know where Scott came from. Jennifer and Skip will hop in here as well with additional insights. So as I mentioned, we've been doing this study since 2007. So we're going to look at the hiring side of the equation first. The purple bars that you see in this represent the total number of associates hired by participating firms. So as you see, and not surprisingly, it sort of tracks what we all know has been happening in the law firm economy over the last 2 decades. So the go-go years of 2007, 2008, the crash in 2009, vastly reduced the amount of hiring. It bubbled back up. It started to get very strong, crashed then again in 2020, and then has been very high for the last few years. And in fact, for calendar year 2024, it was the highest overall level of associate hiring that we have seen since we've been doing this study. So far outstripping even those go-go years in the early part of the 2000s. The other thing that we do, and you can see this represented by the blue and the green bars next to the purple bars for each year, is we break out associate hiring between entry-level associates and lateral associates so that we can see what the relative weight of those is overall. So from 2007 to about 2015, you can see that those were roughly equal, but entry-level hiring actually outstripped lateral hiring. 2015 was really a turning point where we started to see in the data that lateral hiring was outstripping entry-level hiring. And that has been the case since 2015. But in these last 2 years, we are now seeing those 2 cohorts hiring data dovetail again. They're coming much closer together than they had been for the prior 10 years or so. So as you see, it's a relatively small difference between that green bar and blue bar in both the most recent data for 2024 and in the data for the prior year for 2023. And we're going to dig into that by firm size because I know that's going to be something that you're
question, Fiona. Entry level, we're talking about right out of law school, correct?
Yep.
Fresh out of law school.
Yep, they're coming.
And they may or may not have been involved in the summer associate program, but they've never had a job in private practice.
Correct. That's exactly right.
And laterals, would that include folks coming over from a government job, a clerkship, things like that?
Yes, as not necessarily a clerkship, but it will be people who've been in any other work environment. So it could be another law firm, government, as you say, public interest, whatever else it might be.
Okay, where
Fiona,
would the judicial clerks come in? You know, kids who graduated law school, worked for a judge for a while, they'd be lateral, correct? Under your definition?
So, and Jennifer can speak to this as well, but we have to all also be cognizant that clerkships have shifted, right? So many federal judges are now asking that folks practice for several years before they go and
Right.
do a clerkship, and then they may rejoin their original firm or they may go to another one. In that case, they would be a lateral, not an entry level hire, right?
Okay. Just for definitional purposes. And here's a little breakdown by firm size. What are we learning
Fio-
on
Exactly.
this slide?
Fiona, I just have a question on the last slide. You know, the growth of associates over
Mhm.
time, is that in line with the growth of of the size of law firms, or is this an inordinate representation of the growth, and therefore firms are getting younger? I don't know. What would you say?
Right. So the question is, is the baseline expanding or is the pyramid expanding, right?
Y-
So there
Exactly.
has
Yeah.
been significant growth overall in the size of law firms, right? When I started practicing in 1996, I'm going to out myself here, my firm was seen as a large firm and we had 175 attorneys. Nobody would ever
Right.
call that a large firm these days. A large firm
Right.
is 1,000 plus, et cetera. So
Yeah.
there has been a shift overall in the size of the market overall.
Okay.
Okay.
Now,
I'm watching the clock here. I'm gonna
let's
pick
keep
up the
moving.
pace a little bit on us so we don't run out of time. What are
Okay.
we learning here, Fiona?
So what we're learning here is that there is actually an important divergence by firm size reflected in that delta between entry and lateral hiring. So when we look at it overall, we see for entry level hiring was 55% overall. It's less than that. It is lower, just below that at 49% for those in firms of 100 or fewer attorneys. It goes down even further for the next size cohort in 101 to 250. And it's really at the largest firm size that we are seeing that entry level hiring actually now significantly outstripping lateral hiring. So in those very largest firms with more than 1,000 lawyers, 60% of the hiring that they did in the last year for associates was entry level as
Straight
opposed
out
to
of law school. Wow. Wow. And the smaller firms are a little more reliant on the laterals to bring in beef up their expertise and
it's
such.
much more equal, right? When you look at it, so it's much
Yeah.
closer to a 50-50 split or even lower than that for some size cohorts for the smaller size firms.
Okay.
We'd be curious to know if your folks on the webinar today have experienced that. That seems right to them, that kind of 49, 50%, half and half
That's a good
mark.
question. We didn't ask it, but that might be a good follow-up question to ask.
Talk
And
about that.
this is such a vexing issue. People trying to solve the
Hmm.
riddles and laterals. What holds them? Are they going to be loyal to us? They just left the last firm and they've had 3 jobs since law school. Come on, what's going to make us think they're going to stick around for us? And there's so much job hopping going among these younger lawyers, and boy, it's painful for a lot of smaller and mid-sized law firms. This is the quarter breakdown, and
Yep. So
what do we
now we
see?
know the relative numbers of folks who are being hired. So when is this actually happening? And the reason that this is useful for folks on today's webinar is this tells you when there are risky times, right? This is when people are moving in the market. And it's also where we see that there is, again, some differentiation by firm size. So the third quarter overall is the busiest one for associate hiring, right? So 40% overall. But we see that it is busier for the smaller firms at 51% for both firms of 100 and fewer attorneys or 101 to 250 attorneys versus the larger firms where it's just under 40%. Those larger firms are actually doing a little bit more of their associate hiring in the fourth quarter at 34 and 40% for those largest firms.
When Ori and I were kind of going through this a little bit, this was a stunner for us. You would think that the associates are waiting around for their year-end bonus, and the first quarter would be when we see some movement.
Mm-hmm.
What's causing this third quarter activity, you think? And I was
Right.
surprised.
I think partially that, it is people are recognizing sort of what has happened in the last year and whether they need to make a move. And, the largest firms will make up a bonus for you if you're moving, right? So you can afford to move and you'll still be made whole as part of that part of that hiring process. So it is, but I think people are saying, okay, I finished my billable year. What do I see looking ahead in terms of professional development and other opportunities for me? And is this a time to make a move?
So you're saying associates get a pro rata share of their bonus for the year if they leave mid-year?
No, I'm saying that the hiring firm will frequently, if it's a large firm,
Oh, the hiring firm will make
to
them.
make
I got
up
it.
deficit.
Got
That
it.
if they're leaving money on the table, if they're leaving a bonus on the table, the hiring firm will offer to make them whole for that so they don't take a hit.
Interesting.
And Fiona, this is hire and start date in that Q3?
No, it's just hiring when the hiring is
Okay.
happening. Yeah.
Okay.
And do you have any research the recruiting cycle? How long, between the initial interview and the actual hire acceptance? What's the average kind of
We don't
time
have
frame?
data.
Because a lot of firms are slow to hire, and they miss people because they're
No,
slow.
we don't have data tracking the life cycle and how long that takes.
That'd be interesting to look at because,
Mhm.
firms can drag their feet and candidates move on, if the
Mhm.
firm's not a little more decisive in wanting to hire me, uh, everybody's looking and offers are coming. This was a polling question we presented at time of registration, and we asked and set us up a question. What percentage of participating firms were asking people, what do you think is going to be in this survey about boomerang, activity, rehiring?
This is
Did I
an
did I
interesting
interpret that
topic.
right?
Jennifer,
So
I know you love this topic.
that's right. I
I
was
do
about to
love
say
this topic.
boomerangs are one of Jennifer's favorite.
All right, Jennifer,
Mm.
boomerang,
All
Australia
right.
time.
I would say, so this is from our polling question. 43% said less than 5% of the firms participating rehired a former associate, with that 38% at 6 to 10%. If we want to flip over to the NALP Foundation's actual
Yep.
data, I think it might be
So
kind
what
of
we're seeing
surprising.
here is
But
not a whole lot of boomerang
no,
activity among our
No.
crowd, but when we look at your sample size, we're seeing it.
exactly. So
We're seeing it.
we are seeing that these rehires, these boomerang associates, are really a robust source of talent for firms. We had nearly half the firms that participate say that they rehired one of their former associates within the last year. So in calendar year 2024, and that's very similar to what we saw the year prior. 15% of firms reported they hired at least one associate who left their firm last year and then returned to their firm in the same year. And that represented 11% of all associates hired for our study. So of that 6,000 associate hires, 11% of those hires were these boomerang associates. So it really goes to show that this is a robust source of talent, as well as these are folks that can get up and running. They already know the firm, they already may know the clients, so they can kind of get up and running quicker. It also really bears noting for the case for alumni programs and keeping in contact with your alumni when
Alumni
folks
programs,
leave
yeah.
your organization and firm.
And they can be great referral sources, the folks who've left,
Exactly.
So there is a lot of reason to have an alumni program out there. And our crowd seems, oh, that's big law stuff. That's big law stuff. Not necessarily. Just stay in touch with your people. You never know where they might end up and when we might reconnect sometime down the road. I
Jennifer,
was
on this
surprised.
in this number, Jennifer, how about if somebody leaves for a couple of years and then comes back? Would they be considered a boomerang?
Mhm.
They would. We do track that. Exactly. So we track both those who leave within the same year and then those who have left at any point in time. So that's that 11%.
Are boomerangs more loyal
So,
than entries or
mm,
laterals, regular laterals?
Well,
Good
I think you can
question.
say they're loyal because they come back, right? So
They
they
left
don't.
us once. I mean,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think what the boomerang phenomenon really points to is that we need to rethink what we mean by retention, right? Because we tend to think of retention as we have the person from the time they walk in the door all the way until their retirement. But retention actually probably means a little bit more of an oscillating pattern if we're starting to see these levels of boomerangs. So, to the point that I think, Yuri and John, you were making alumni programs, other things that Jennifer pointed to, but retention is really much more of a life cycle retention rather than just retention in a particular moment in time.
right?
And John, to your point earlier about the speed in which folks are hired in, I mean, if we've got that many folks leaving within the calendar year and coming back in the calendar year, Again, we don't track that, but I'm guessing that means they're making pretty quick decisions
It's
for some of
happening
these folks.
fast, right?
Yes,
There's so
happening
many
very.
firms I work, they left us. That's it. They're disloyal. We're slamming the door shut, and they won't talk to folks that want to come back. And then there are others that say, you know what? The grass isn't always greener. They had to go figure that out on their own and realize, we got a good thing going on here. And
So
only when
leave
they
on,
go somewhere else do they figure that out.
so
And,
leave on good terms.
so
That's the
it's interesting, just the dichotomy in attitudes around bringing back
important.
people who've left us once. Uh, what are we seeing here, folks?
So this is the overall attrition rate. And as we mentioned, we've been doing this for many, many years. And as you'll see, historically, going back to 2007, the attrition rate usually hovers around 18 or 19%. We saw a huge spike up in the 2021 attrition rate where it went up to 26%. That was the highest we've ever seen in the study. And that's when everyone was sort of engaging in this whole talent swirl. People were moving, leaving, coming and going at rates that we had never seen before. It
Wow.
bubbled back down to 20 and 18%. Whoops, I think we just lost our
I
slide.
know I jumped ahead. This is my technology
All
savviness,
right,
AI is going to replace me. I just know it.
there we go. It bubbled back down to 20 and 18% overall in the prior 2 years. This year, we actually saw the attrition rate go up a little bit again, up to 20%. So we're sort of watching that. The other thing that's interesting about the 2024 attrition rate is as you read across the top column, we've broken it out by firm size. It usually stays relatively consistent across the firm size, but in this year's data, we see a significant distinct difference between the attrition rate for smaller firms of 100 or fewer attorneys. It's much higher. It's at 31% versus the 18, 17, and 19% for all of the other size bands. So for many of
Boy,
you on the call, you may have been experiencing this much higher level of attrition than you had either historically seen or than these other firm size cohorts have been seeing over the last few years
boy,
as well.
that number jumps. I mean, compared
Hmm.
to every other number on that chart, boy,
Yeah.
that one catches your attention. And
I
and
would
do we
I
know
would add to that
why the smaller firms are being a little more impacted by this
Jennifer, go ahead.
attrition?
Oh, I was going to say too, we track the range of the attrition rate ranges, and it's a huge range for that. While it's 31% on average, the range is 6%, all the way up to 88% for one poor, uh, smaller size firm who experienced an 88% attrition rate last year. So that kind of helped bump that number up. Um, but it's really nice for organizations because they can go ahead and see what their attrition rate is and kind of see where you land within that spectrum. So although the average rate is 31%, perhaps you fall a little bit higher or lower than that, but you know what the whole full spectrum and range is within that. So when you're reporting back to your leadership, you can compare and contrast against your peers that way.
I'm come back to why are the smaller firms experiencing this attrition to the degree they are compared to their larger brethren?
So we'll
What's
get
going
in.
on there?
We have some data in the later slides that talks about some of the reasons that associates are departing firms. So I'm not going to steal our own thunder. We'll get to that in a moment.
Now, this I thought was a really interesting question you all asked us to present to our registrants. The
Yep.
demographic cohorts tend to have longer tenures, and there was some ethnicity in there and some experience level in there. But these are the results our participants gave us. Talk to us.
So, and interesting, one of them sort of aligns with the data, and one of them really doesn't align with the data.
Perfect.
It
Yep,
is what it is.
yep. So let's share the NALP Foundation data on
What
this.
does this strike you in any way, Fiona or Jennifer, Skip? What our crowd comes up with in terms of the answer to this question?
It's not surprising. The summer associate data, as we'll see, sort of aligns with what ours, that people who have that point of connectivity with a firm tend to stay longer. Here we go.
Yep.
So when we look at it, we break it up in a number of different ways. So first, by gender, we see there's very little difference in the attrition rate. By gender, very close, males at 22, females at 20%, non-binary at 23, although it's a relatively small number that self-identifies as such. Where we actually see some of the major differences are between white associate attrition levels at 19% versus 24% for associates of color. So a huge delta there. And we also see some geographic differences as well. So the Mid-Atlantic and Midwest have the lowest associate attrition rates in the 2024 data at 17 and 18%, with the West Rocky Mountain and the Northeast quite a bit higher at 23 and 24%, and the Southeast sitting sort of right in the middle at 20%.
Any
Fiona,
reasons why these, the African Americans I can get,
It's
why
associates of
there's
color overall, not just African
yeah,
Americans.
okay. But very in demand, I'm sure heavily recruited, you know. Um, but regional. Any reason why the Mid-Atlantic might be a little more stable than, say, California?
So, I think part of the driver is where some of the large firms are situated, right? So the Northeast market includes New York, and there's a huge amount of movement in the New York talent area, as any of you who are sitting in that area know. So I think that's part of the reason why that drives some of those higher levels.
Okay. All right.
just going back for 1 second, John, to that on that slide.
Well, you guys, I'm trying to drive a little faster, and you guys keep
Anecdotally,
slamming the brakes on me.
well, anecdotally, the question that we get all the time, and John has a whole conference in October about women associates and women in the partnership ranks. This seems to indicate that there's only a slight difference in the retention attrition of men versus women, and yet certainly by the partner level, it
Yep.
seems to be a much bigger delta.
Yeah.
Why is this showing comparable, but yet in partnership ranks we see not comparable?
Good question, Gutfreund. Good
Yeah,
question there,
it's
detective.
partially that the numbers are narrowing, right, as we get further up the seniority, right? So they're,
Okay.
huge entry level classes, roughly
Okay.
equal male and female. But remember, we're also looking at it as percentages, right? And Jennifer will jump in here as our data guru, but it's the percentages of males and females, right?
Yep, and when we calculate our attrition rate, we base it off of employment. So those who departed based on what your employment levels are at that time as well. And historically, we've seen those numbers just differ between, 1 to 2 percentage points. So dating all the way back to 2007.
Interesting. I guess over time, those 2% become more significant, I guess,
Yeah.
to your point,
We had
Fiona.
this graphic at the Women's Leadership Conference where, women have been the majority of graduates from law school for some time now, and the majority of entry-level associates are women. Yet as we go through the ascent of our careers, women seem to fall off. And you look to the senior associates, the non-equity partners, income partners, and then you get to the managing partner ranks, and women just fewer and fewer and fewer. I guess going off for different reasons, but it's interesting to see that data bear out.
So here
Uri,
here
you're
we
going to
go.
pick us up from here.
Yep, here we go. So why are people leaving? And this is, everybody wants to know. I know there's certain, I think you'll say misperceptions out there. So we asked at registration from the list, from these choices, what do you think the reasons are? The top reasons cited why experienced lawyers depart. And the number one people thought would be compensation, work-life balance. I think this maybe is a little surprising for those of you who have the correct data. Fiona, what does your survey show on this? Although
Yeah.
we hear this, this did not surprise John and I. Your
Yeah.
data did. So to walk us through that, help us.
Well, and some of this is a voluntary departure by the associate. Others
Yes.
clearly, you got some productivity or quality issues with your work product. Here's your data.
Here's our data. So I'm going to flip
So
this
what do we
to
got?
we break it up between entry level and laterals, and there are some important distinctions there.
Yep, and so when we take a look at this, historically, we've seen that pursuit of specific practice interests as well as career change to other type of legal job kind of be the leading drivers year after year after year. We do break out the reasons by entry level and lateral associates, so we kind of see that is the case this year, but we also see that some of these primary reasons that associates are leaving do differ by hire type. For example, better compensation. That is more frequently a top driver for lateral associates, as is better support for work-life balances for both. We also tracked for the first time those leaving to judicial clerkships. We had talked about that a little bit earlier. That was 10%. So we'll see that as well. So year over year, consistent reasons, but we do see those reasons differ based on what type of hire that associate who left the firm was.
It looks
Now,
like
why?
you're fired is the number one reason. You're fired. Work
Well,
quality problems.
we do track
You're not very
all of these
productive.
departures based on their status from the firm's perspective, if they were a wanted, an unwanted, or a neutral departure. So if it was unwanted, perhaps that person left, but it might be unwanted for a different reason. If it is a wanted departure, it may not be productivity related based. It could also be maybe that firm was carrying excess capacity in the specific region or office. So we do track and have more in-depth information on all of this in our reports.
I think last year when you were sharing with us some highlights, compensation was the number one factor people stay, work-life balance number two. There's a little
Career path.
way,
Mhm.
counterbalancing there.
Yeah.
These associates seem to want it all. They want the big bucks. They want the remote work option. They want the work-life balance, lots of mentoring and training. And, I'm going to leave you in a couple of years anyway. This is a vexing issue. I was stunned when I saw this, to be honest. Where's the money? Because that's what we hear again and again. We're losing associates because we can't compete with compensation when big law comes a calling. And we lose the good ones, and we're a training ground for big law. We hear that again and again, and they'll leave us for 10 grand, 15 grand, and boy, after all this training and dedication, they jump ship for 20 grand. So I was surprised compensation wasn't top of the list.
Right.
But with
So
this study too, it is also reported by law firm report the information to us. And so these numbers are slightly lower than what we would seen in our stay study, as well as our other studies that we conduct where compensation is listed at a much higher level.
Okay. Work-life balance. We hear about work-life balance, so people love it when we ask this polling question, and that is, what is the billable hour expectation for the associates at your law firm? And hopefully our technology will kick in. I'm doing it right. People are answering. And I've got to click on end and share results. So I've got about 60% of you voting so far. And I like to say, being in Georgia, we know how to count votes. Got 70% of you. If you want in, the polls are closing. So here's the billable hour expectation. Is that poll coming in, people? Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. That one worked. So there we are at 1800 to 1900. When we did this program last year with you guys, we asked the same question when people registered, and there it is at around 1800. So we see pretty much billable hour expectations holding steady here. It looks like at around 1800 or so.
Now,
what's going on in New York with actual hours worked? What's going on there in your data?
Yeah. Our data, we do a survey in New York, and although I think it has to do with a little bit of the wording, our survey is actual hours collected, or rather registered, recorded. This is what your expectation is.
Yeah.
We didn't ask the group. We didn't ask how many you actually recorded. This is what's the expectation. And so what we find in New York is the expectation is this. We don't really ask that. We ask, what did you actually do? And it's a lot less than 1800, I can tell you that much. And that's what John's ribbing me about. Our data in New York
I believe it was around 1350 or something like that. And all the managing partners just go, ah! It just drives them crazy.
It was 1450, but yes, the point is the same. Yes. But
When I
let's
was a
talk
baby
about
lawyer, it was 2,100 hours. What's going on here? The work-life
exactly,
balance. These young lawyers,
exactly.
boy, do we hear it. They're not motivated.
So this is
I don't
this is
agree, but that's a common lament among a lot of managing partners.
this is an
So this
interesting
slide's going to
topic.
show us where they're going. These
That's
Yes.
right.
these departing lawyers, correct?
That's So, the number one place that folks go when they leave your firms is to another law firm. That won't be surprising, right around
Right.
40%, right? Whether they came in as entry levels or as laterals. The next most popular destination is a corporate or an in-house counsel type position by just under 20% for all three cohorts, overall, lateral, and entry. And then, as Jennifer mentioned, this information is reported to us by the participating firms. So they've got between 10 and 12% where they actually aren't quite sure what the person is going to do as their next. But the overarching message is vast majority are going to go and be in another law firm, bigger, smaller, same, similar size, et cetera, followed by an in-house position.
In
Well,
our
I got a
study often,
question. Why don't these bars add up to 100? You know, or close to 100? It looks like there's a lot of people unaccounted for here.
So these are the top three destinations. There are
Okay,
we ask a whole
got
phalanx
it,
of them. So
got
they
it.
could
That
be going
clarifies.
into
That answers my
education, they
question.
could be taking a career hiatus, they could be going into government, all of those things. So those are all at
Yeah.
much lower levels overall.
Okay. So unknown is number 3. It's not the
Correct.
catch-all kind of
Correct.
category. Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
we got a question. We got a question from the group that I think is related to this, which is, and I'm not sure there's any way that the data would capture this, but so many firms express frustration with they don't know they're gone till they're gone. Why do
Mm.
associates wait until telling them they're unhappy on the way out the door?
Yeah.
Um, I know last year you advised everyone to do stay interviews,
Yeah.
keep those people there. Any insights from the years you've been doing this data? Are some firms better than others in that?
I think the short answer is yes, right? It's partially how connected you are to your people and how far the information is cycling up, right? The senior associate who is working a lot with the mid-level associate may be hearing the, sort of rumblings that would indicate, there's a
Hmm.
flight risk here. Whether that person is then feeding it up to the partner, to the professional
Right.
development folks, et cetera, whether there's any intervention happening. There's, I think a really interesting conversation to be had, and we're actually doing a study on this about performance evaluations and how
Yes.
those are utilized effectively or not, right? Are those used not just to monitor how well people are doing, but to plan going forward, to identify opportunities for intervention so that you can say, oh, we've got someone who's really good that we want to keep, and they're either burning out because they're working too much, or they've been, they're not growing in the way that they want to. We need to feed them different types of opportunities in order to maintain that connectivity with them. So I think that's something that firms can really take a look at.
Fiona, I'm all about transparency, engagement, really caring about your people, taking an interest in their career development, their career satisfaction, being genuine as a mentor, and if someone's going to think gets another offer, they're going to come talk to me about it,
Mm-hmm.
and instead of just walking out the door and leaving me standing there, what the heck happened? I think it's about that personal relationship and caring. Do you really care about your people and their development, or are they just, grinding them out, grinding them out, grinding them out, disposable billing units?
Right.
Because a lot of firms treat their associates like disposable billing units.
Well, we
They
saw
don't
that
care.
very much in the data that we shared with you last year around our retention study, where what the associates were saying was really critical to them was having individualized attention and mentoring that fosters their particular professional development.
Yeah,
And that's the key to connectivity. That's a stickiness factor, right?
yeah,
They want
stickiness.
good work, they want the right people, but they want to know that people are taking a very specific interest in ensuring that they are developing in the way that they should be, that it isn't just sort of cogs in a wheel.
I thought I have a friend, Sharon Abrahams, has a lot of professional development, big law, and she talks about mentors. But the distinction between mentorship and sponsorship
Yes.
of your young people, and really understanding the difference and doing a little more sponsoring, they like that, and that
Right.
creates loyalty. She makes that point. So I'm looking at the clock here, and unfortunately, we're starting to get close to the top of the hour. And so, tenure, associate departures by tenure within 5.
This is
This
one
is
of
stunning.
Jennifer's favorite data points, so I'm going to kick this one to her as well.
Stunning. This
Again,
is
so
real
this one,
stunning data.
it is. It's always stunning. Every time we present it to a group, it's shocking to everyone. And in fact, over the last couple of years, we're really starting to see a new trend. We're starting to see a trend where associates are leaving their firms even sooner. So typically we saw about 3/4 leaving within 5 years. In calendar year 2023 and 24, it's been closer to 80%. And that 3/4 are shifted down to within 4 years of with being with their firm. So
This
as
is
of
entry
hires.
level types or all types?
All
All
types,
types.
all across the board, across demographics, across everything. And so really the big pain point is that third year. We typically see about half of laterals leaving at that point and about a third of entry levels, but even those numbers are starting to rise more, and entry levels are starting to almost mirror dovetail with lateral associates. So that's another really like pain point area to watch, is within that third
Third
year.
year.
And as
That's
we did within our polling earlier, those with longer tenures were the entry levels, those who have summered with your firm, and white associates. Those who are leaving sooner are lateral associates, those who have not summered with your firm, and associates of color.
You like the summers,
um,
Jennifer. The summer programs. You've said it a few times.
Yeah, they tend to stay longer, and they also tend to be less likely reported as a wanted departure by firms. So they want them to stay around.
Right.
that is a long play. It's a big investment, that
Mm-hmm.
summer associate program. And boy, the economy softens. That's one of the first things we cut is the firm retreat and the summer associate program. And that's probably a little penny wise, pound foolish, but that's what we see. 80%. Here's our little guy. I'm going with the puppy dog theme this webinar, and he's very content in his little law firm there. And why associates stay. And I just thought it'd be interesting to throw up a polling question, and let's see if I can do this one right, which is we can only unfortunately give you 5 choices, the limitations of this software. So we came up with what we see as the main reasons. Oops, sorry, everybody. Back to poll. The main reason firms stay. And know what? I closed the poll too early, and I blew this one. So let me end it. I want to relaunch it. Bear with me. Let's see if I can do this right. I've ended it. Share again. I can do that, but I can't relaunch the darn thing. I blew it. I'm not doing so good on my polling today. Let me try it one more time.
We're going to replace you, John, with AI. Be
I
careful.
know. I mean, I'm unlike our Secretary of State here in Georgia. I'm being very, I cannot open it. Back to polls list. I cannot reopen it. Darn. Sorry about that, everybody. I'll ask that one again. But the couple of you that did vote vote before I accidentally closed the poll said it was culture. Said it was culture. Let me view that.
Well, we've mentioned these before earlier, and we talked about these last year on our when we presented our stay study findings. But the top 3, we asked associates, we gave them 15 factors and asked them to rank them in terms of their importance for staying at the firm. And yes, compensation did come out number 1, but that doesn't mean the amount of money. It's that they are being paid fairly for what they're doing, what market they're in, what type of firm they're in, where they are geographically. Work-life balance, was number 2. Perhaps it wasn't surprising that these 3 were together, but they all really, career path was the 3rd. So as Fiona mentioned, they do want to know that there's some sort of path forward for them that is specific to them. It's not a generic, all of you will do this, or we expect all of you to do that, but they want that sort of bespoke career advising, that there's some path forward for them. And maybe that's what some people are getting and they're staying, and many people are not getting. I know that, again, that takes time to do that. But those are the 3, and they really kind of together kind of represent a very holistic way of looking at this. Mentoring was one that was in the list. Of course, path to partnership was another. Some of the factors, they just weren't as ranked as highly as compensation, work-life balance, and career path.
I use that slide all the time that you presented last year with
Oh,
credit
good.
to NALP Foundation, of course.
Yeah.
But those 15 factors,
Hmm.
of why associates stay, I bring that out all the time. And to make my point to smaller firms, it's hard to compete on the compensation when big law comes. So culture, work-life balance, mentoring, transparency, path to partnership, these sorts of things, I think are ways you can, uh, you know, compensate for the lack of compensation that you as a smaller firm.
Right.
Um, so it's tough. It's tough. Um, you got a new study coming up,
We
and
do.
we want to encourage
Really?
our participants to check it out and participate. So who's
Absolutely.
going
As
to
we
walk us
discussed.
through what this is you got
Yeah,
going on?
absolutely. So this is a really exciting new study looking at performance evaluation processes within law firms. And the genesis of this is really to provide law firms with actionable data and understand how performance evaluations not only are being done across a whole swath of law firms, but how they can be most effectively done and how the data from them can be most effectively deployed. So we talked about this with the retention efforts, how performance evaluations can really be part of the ongoing colloquy between the associate talent that a firm has spent so much time and money recruiting and wants to retain, and have that be part of an ongoing conversation about how are you developing, what are the next steps that need to happen, and who needs access to this data in order to make that happen. So we are in the midst of collecting the data. So please reach out to us if you would like to be part of this. Participating firms will get a snapshot report that looks at the data, and then we'll be sharing the findings more broadly when we publish the study once it is done. But please do reach out to us if you are interested in participating in this. We'd love to have you join.
Is there a fee?
It's completely free to participate, and participation is confidential. All of the foundation's research, all of the attrition data we just shared with you, we never reveal the identities of the firms that have participated. We do slice the data so that it's most useful. So for example, by firm size, right? So you would be able to see in the performance evaluation process report how it breaks out for different firm size cohorts, but your firm's participation would not be revealed. You would just have the benefit of getting the data and seeing how you are all can do things in a way that is most effective for your talent recruiting and retention efforts.
And Fiona, is this a tedious poll to participate in, survey to participate in? Is there pretty
No,
light and
it,
easy
it, it
for
takes 12 minutes or less to complete. And it just,
folks? Come on, that's your payback to us.
Yes.
Participate in this NALP Foundation survey
yep, it's
and tell
literally
us what you think
going
of the
through.
program.
Yep.
Other than my vote counting ability this afternoon. Uh, I don't want to hear it. Uh, and there's something else you guys have going on. Jennifer, what's this all about? The
Yeah,
customized
we do
reports.
offer customized reports and also consulting. So as Fiona mentioned, if you participate in our studies, you receive an individual report. So you can compare and contrast your data versus your peers. And so that is completely part of your participation in our study. We also offer for firms that don't participate in our study, as well as those that do, peer firm reports. You can send us a list of firms that you would like to compare and contrast results with. We don't identify them, but we'll lump them together, and you can again see what that data is. So you have that low cost, quick alternative pulse on what is happening with your peers. We run AmLaw 50, 100, and 200 reports. We can run regional data. And then also we have firms that come to us if they want to take a deeper dive into particular topics within our research or track their history over time. So we can work with firms to do some individual firm presentations as well and present that data. So if you are
And
interested, please contact us. And here's my email information right here.
And you all mentioned that a number of people from last year's webinar with us took advantage of these offerings, and so we hope more will do so. The data is very compelling and very persuasive when you're trying to convince your colleagues to, we need to do more for our associates or whatever we're trying to do. So the idea of cherry picking some of this data, presenting it to your colleagues, I'm going to reissue those survey polls because I think that's good stuff people like. And so I'll in the follow up encourage people to click answer a few questions, see what we can collect there. And in keeping with our puppy dog theme, here's our curious little fella. What should I do? What should I do? What do I need to do to get a treat? Well, here's some of the things we suggest. We talk from time to time about psychological assessments as you look at talent, onboarding, and placement of talent, and relatively off-putting to a lot of law firms. But Fortune 1000 companies use these routinely, find them very, very helpful to make the right hires and get folks to the right positions. I'm not sure why law firms don't do more of this. Those few firms that do exercise psychological assessments to evaluate candidates find them very, very helpful to find folks that are going to fit with our culture, find folks that have the attributes we're looking for with our lawyers. I think the associate development programs, boy, these folks, these young lawyers want it. The mentoring, the evaluation, the feedback. If you're not providing this, I think they are very much in play, and investing in them, I think, will create loyalty and engagement. We find, Uri, associates like the transparency as much as you're willing to share, the client list, the partnership agreement, how the compensation model works, the criteria to become an equity partner. And I think so often the partners are neglectful in communicating more information to the young lawyers. They crave it. And you don't have to share everything, but the more you are willing to share, I think the more engagement that will likely create. Culture, 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 and check out the NALP Foundation and its offerings. They really have some great stuff, and we'll be sending links to the materials that Fiona and her team have referenced here. Uri, before we close out, anything you wanna chime in with?
Well, I just give one comment, which is your culture. Really delve in. A lot of firms want to be all things to all people, and as a small firm, I think that's your competitive advantage. If the trend is give people lots of flexibility to be out of the office, but you really don't think that works in your firm, well, then really dial down into that and communicate that. So when people interview, you're going to be attracting people who want in-person training. There's a group out there that want that, and if that's your firm, double down on that. Don't try and be all things to all people. No shortcuts. It's hard, but it's really what works. And people will stay with you. That's today's topic. Stay with you if they're a good fit for your firm. So drill down on who you
And
really
it's
are.
okay you don't have to run with the herd on
Yep.
everything. I have that sheep bringing on the data because I think law firms want to know what other firms are doing, and that's important. But what's best for your firm at this time and place in its history? And yeah, what other firms are doing is interesting to look at, but what should we be doing? So here we want your feedback. Our friends at Nine Sale, they do SEO for law firms. They do recaps, and they're helping us with our website presence. So we want to thank them. Fiona, Jennifer, Skip, always a great conversation. Good to see you again. I hope you'll be back next year because we got a place for you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having us today. We hope the data was intriguing and most of all helpful for all of you. And please don't hesitate to reach out to us if any of the folks on the webinar have questions, or particularly if you'd like to join the performance evaluation study. We'd love to have you on board.
And we'll feed you the contact information shortly. Jennifer, what say you as we part ways?
I would just encourage you to take a look at our research and join our studies. It's really a great way for you to get information on the pulse of what's happening and compare your data against your peers. So good benchmarking data.
And Mr. Horne?
I got nothing to add to that.
I got nothing. I got nothing. Thanks again, everybody. Here's the contact information for Fiona, Skip, and Jennifer. And please feel free to reach out to either of them, any of them, Uri or me, if you want to talk some more about this or any other topics about the business of law. So thanks to be with us, and we'll be sending you follow-up, recording, handouts, links to the NALP Foundation resources, and probably more. So be on the lookout for that. Thanks, everybody. Good to have you with us.
I know.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Hey, all.